Welcome to Ephemeraphiles by Tommy. And it's very, very blustery day, as Winnie the Pooh would say, and I'm getting some odd noises in my studio, and I don't know if it's the wind like going up under the eaves and making my what are they called, gutters shake or something, and I don't know if you can even hear it, but I hear it. And it's kind of off-putting. Anyway, I was sorting through my big tote, well, relatively big tote of images that I have cut out of magazines that are larger than the little boxes that I put my die cuts into. And I really wanted to just kind of get some stuff done out of there, and I really need to get things completed in my studio and arranged in my studio and purged in my studio. And so I decided I need to do something with these, or I just need to get rid of them. And so I was looking, and just give me a second to move some things. These are some envelopes that I previously made out of magazines, and I think that all of these particular envelopes, I know I used my punch board for them, and they are all from Serena and Lily, I think, is a catalog that has home furnishings and stuff, and these are images of bedding, but I don't think they look like images of bedding. You wouldn't know that if I hadn't told you, now would you? And I just cut them out, and using this chart that's on the punch board, I made all these envelopes, and they're fine because they're really non-directional. It doesn't really matter which direction these go, if the picture is sideways, but I think that they're all really pretty. I especially love this one, and would go in pretty much any journal as a background. You could decorate on here, and I think that they're all lovely. But it's kind of something different that I am working on now, because it's easy enough when you have an image like this. You can just make an envelope any which way. Or like this one, it really doesn't matter which way those roses are going. This one is such a close-up of a hyacinth that you can't really tell anything, and that's actually one I just took out of a frame that I bought. And then here's another magazine page, or a catalog page, and I think that's super pretty. And it doesn't matter what direction you go with those to make the envelope. Let's see if I can do this one real quick just to give you an example. This is 7 by 8.5, and then you would look on here for the paper size that is closest to that, and I will tell you right now, it's very rare that your paper is going to be exactly the size you need. So I need 7.5 by 8.5, and I've got a 7.5 here. Yep, I would have to cut off. Did I say 7? See, I need a 7, not a 7.5. I'm getting tripped up already. There is not one that has a 7. So I'll have to go down to the next one, which would be 6 3/4 by 6 3/4. So I would have to trim this one down, and I can do that real quick. 6 3/4 by 6 3/4. And I'm just going to use the ruler to get that done. Because I can use my mat to align it. And there I've made myself another scrap that I need to figure out something with. And let's see, let's go on this side. And I said 6.5, right? Yes, 6.5. This one's not much to tear off. It's just a 1/2 inch long. So I'm just going to give you a real quick tutorial on how the envelope maker works, so that I can show you this. That one I can get rid of. It's too small to really, I don't need to keep it. You don't need to keep all the things, Tommy. All right. Now for 6.5, where'd it go? it says that I need to make my first score at 2 3/4, which is right there, and I'll line up this edge on the 2 3/4. Let's take this out before I get started. 2 3/4, and then I'm going to punch. And what that does is it just cuts a little divot out. And I will tell you right now, magazine paper does not punch well. Lots of times I will take another piece of paper and lay it under there just so it'll punch through. But at the 2 3/4, and then I'm going to take the scoring tool. Do not press hard at all on magazine paper. You will rip right through it. And I am just going to make a score right there. And then you line up this indentation that you made. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, right there. I had it there. There it is. You're going to line that up with this little projectile thing sticking out here. Lay it right in the indentation. You're going to punch, and then you're going to score this angle, and you'll have another indentation there where you scored. And you're going to do that until you get all the way around. And you may already know how to do this, and that's fine. If you skip ahead, I don't mind. And this should, if I have done it right, line right up with that other one, and it did. And then you go in and you just score on those lines that you made. And remember, you're going to be scoring or folding the opposite way of the score. I scored that very lightly, so I'm going to have to do this to kind of show my paper where the line is. But when you score, this becomes a valley, and when you fold, you want to make that into a mountain. Okay, and I'm not going to use that on this magazine paper because it will rip it. And I'll have to trim that part off right there where it didn't cut the angle, because, like I said, the magazine paper is very thin. And the envelope punch doesn't really care for thin paper. There. And then you will just glue it. Now, I suggest with magazine paper that you line it first, unless you like what's in the inside and you really don't mind if it's thin. But see, that made a really pretty envelope, and it really didn't matter which direction it went, right? But sometimes you get pages where you really like the image, but you don't want it to be sideways, and you don't want to punch it, and it feels like you're going to lose a lot of the image if you do it that way. So one way that I did it is, this was from probably Spring Hill or some other magazine that sends you the mailers in the envelopes in the mail, and everything in it is one size. Like this is one size. And on this one, I just cut out around the dahlia up here, finding a place that was really close to the edge to stop. Then I folded up the bottom. Excuse me. I folded up the bottom to meet that edge and made an envelope. And then this just folds over. But that's a pretty skinny envelope, and I still feel like maybe I lost a whole lot of that flower. I also did it on this dahlia page, the same thing. And on that one, I like the hibiscus that peek out on the inside. So I probably won't go back and do anything with that one. This one I'll probably go back in line with something. These two, these three, I did just the folding up and then the flap, and that's the envelope. And I saved a bunch of the image. But I lose about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or more on each end because of where I have to put the glue to hold it closed. So I thought maybe this would work. I really like this field of daffodils, And I kind of have a natural line up here where I can fold it over for the flap because that doesn't cut off any of the daffodils. So I am going to measure this, and I'm going to measure how far down I need to come to meet the top of the envelope, or the daffodils, and that is 3/4 of an inch right there. And so I'm going to measure the entire length of it, which is 6 3/4. Well, that worked out well. 6 3/4 minus the 3/4 for the top of the flap, and I have 3. So what I am going to do is, from the bottom here, I'm going to measure 3, and I'm going to punch. I'm going to turn it over and measure 3, and I'm going to punch. And then for this end, I'm going to measure. I can't quite get I can't quite get the 3/4 on that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this point right here and put it on. What am I going to do? I'm going to think for a minute. Okay, the center of this right here, I'm going to put on the 3 because I know that I need that to fold it up. And this is eyeballing, so it's probably not going to be perfect. It's easier when it's more than 3/4 that you're going to cut down. But it should still work decently. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to just fold that where the crease is. And yes, it kind of looks like those daffodils are upside down, but really they're not. And I am going to do the same thing here. I'm going to fold it on the centers of those divots that I cut right there. Next, I'm going to take a ruler or something else that is very stiff and long enough to reach all the way across. I'm going to line it up to the bottom of the divot and the bottom of the divot. Okay? I don't know why I said okay. Actually going to line those up on my folder, or on my piece, my mat. And I'm just going to take and fold that up to the ruler, being very careful not to tear a hole like I just did. Remember, it's a magazine page, it's very delicate. And then I'm going to do that on the other side as well. I could have shown you what I was making first. All right, now I am going to fold those over. If I fold it right in the first place, it should be fine, but this is the one that I tore just a little bit, so it may be a little off. And I didn't line this one yet. I'm just not going to on this one, but I can, if I need to, come back and do it later. And yes, even these little tabs up here on the envelope, I do fold in. Then I'm going to fold this up, and you will see, I kind of needed to adjust that fold a little bit. It was a little crooked. You'll see that I can now glue these two tabs together, and it doesn't take away any of the distance from this side to this side. I can put something in that is right snug up to those edges. And these two tabs I glue down just to give a little strength on the edges of the envelope flap. And then there's the front of my envelope. And it's straight. It's not at an angle other than the angle that the daffodils are growing. So I'll just go ahead and glue this real quick. Actually, because this one does go all the way up, I could have made a thinner envelope, but I didn't want to. I'm going to make just a little. Just a little thumb notch right there. And this is my favorite tool for making a thumb notch, because it doesn't really leave a corner for things to get caught on. So I'm going to glue this. Just the flap. And I'm going to line those up and glue them together. And then I'm going to glue my little flaps here down. My glue stick is about to the bottom. I need to open up another one. And I think that that makes a nice little envelope. And I haven't sacrificed the direction of the image, and I haven't sacrificed the distance or the size of the thing that I can put in there, because I can go all the way from side to side. Those flaps really don't get in the way because it's just a piece of paper that's there. If you wanted to, you could glue both flaps down to the inside if you didn't want them sticking out like that. But I think that that turned out pretty well. And so these are just some different envelopes. These are your normal type that you would make with your envelope punch. That's what's intended. If you see this image right here, that's what is intended with that. And that's why when you use a directional piece of paper, your envelope ends up being, your picture ends up being sideways. Sometimes it doesn't matter, like I said. And then these are also simple ways of making envelopes. And I do like the fancy tops on that. It's just, it's a very narrow envelope, and I don't have any room on the edges to make it. So out of all of these, this is probably my favorite way to make an envelope. So now I am going to get busy, because I have a whole lot of envelopes that I want to make, because it's time to either use it or lose it. Thank you for joining me today. What is your favorite way to make an envelope? Do you hate making envelopes? You know, just share in the comments below. I love to learn, and I love to find out what it is you like to do. Thanks for joining me today. And as always, be kind. Bye.